Introverts. How did you meet your girlfriend? Story 1. She came over to me in a coffee shop while she was on vacation in my country to ask how to tip. We had a 2-hour conversation and then an amazing 5-hour lunch 2 days later. She complained about her hostel and I offered her my spare bedroom. She accepted. Nothing happened, although it seems crystal clear in retrospect that we were falling for each other. Duh. I didn't want to be douchey and make her feel uncomfortable under my roof, so putting the moves on her was not something I seriously considered. 2 nights later, I had to be gone for most of the night on a work assignment, and I asked if she would please watch and walk my dog in my absence. I came home at 5 a.m. and was greeted by my very soft and fluffy dog. She had somehow understood, "Will you please wash my dog?" and apparently didn't find that a strange request at all. The next evening, after we'd been talking over a bottle of wine for hours, it seems she had enough of my apparent indecisiveness, took the wine glass out of my hand, put it down, and leaned in for a kiss. That was 26 years ago. We've been married for 23 years. Story 2. I've known this girl for a decade now, and I have had a crush on her for the longest time. Just recently, in a drunken state, she confessed she's been in love with me for years, and yet every time the topic has come up about relationships, I've matrix dodged my way out. But not anymore. As of tomorrow, I'm going to, or at least try to ask her out. I've never been so scared in all my life. Pray for me. Update 1. I decided to send her a link to the thread for a topic starter, then, like an awkward cliche, continued to ask her out over Messenger. Her reply was for me to wait until she was properly woken up and cuddle her cat. Now, we try not to have a panic attack while waiting for the game. Update you guys again in a few hours. Update 2. It's a complete role reversal. She's now worried about what if it doesn't work out. She wants to talk in person now. Hopefully, we can hash it out today. Final update. We're all going to be left in suspense. Due to luck, our talk won't be happening until the weekend. I might make a post about this on Reddit somewhere after it's ended with a final verdict. But until then, we wait. Limbo. We finally managed to get a day off work and meet up. The talk mostly consisted of us going around in circles, so to cut a long story short, she didn't want to say yes because of the fact that ultimately nothing will change between us. She's scared that if the relationship doesn't work out, it will end up ruining our friendship, and I'll just be like another one of her exes. However, she didn't want to say no either, so I still might have a chance. She told you she liked you. You literally can't f this up, it's a done deal. Story 3. Both of us work at a grocery store. I saw her and thought she was the cutest there, but never really did anything about it. She works as a cashier in a work in production. She would always do the shop, and I soon realized that she was doing that for a reason and started flirting with her back. We have been together for 11 months now. Story 4. On the Greyhound. During my time in the Army, I was stationed at Fort Eustis, Virginia. On my way home for Christmas, by the way at that time I lived in Denver, Colorado, I saw her sitting across from and slightly behind me. Honestly, I didn't pay much attention to her at first, but my buddy, seated next to her, did. After getting shot down repeatedly for a day and a half, he finally got off the bus. Shortly thereafter, she came over and sat next to me, and we started talking. After that, we got split up, put on different buses, and I kicked myself for not getting her number. Then when the bus stopped in St. Louis, she was standing right there at the entrance, almost like she was waiting for me. If my bus had arrived 15 minutes later, I would have never seen her again. Then I found out the bus to Denver was delayed due to snow, and wasn't going anywhere for at least 2 days. She hurried over to the ticket counter and had my ticket changed to Des Moines, Iowa, where she was also going, so I wouldn't be trapped in St. Louis for 2 days. We spent the next 4 days getting to know each other, then I went home. We had a long-distance relationship for about 6 months, until I came home permanently, by which time she had moved to Denver and rented an apartment. We got married 3 years later and have been together for 10 years in total. Story 5. He was in the corner drinking a bottle of water. I noticed him immediately, and I noticed him noticing me for the better part of an hour. I finally just walked up to him after I figured he was too shy to approach me. We chatted for about 2 hours, and then left. Later in school, we exchanged our AOL screen names, and after weeks of random chat sessions, he finally worked up the courage to ask if I wanted to see a movie. Of course, it's Harry Potter. During the date, he didn't say anything, but I noticed him very fidgety, so I decided to hold his hand. After the movie, we were sitting in his car in silence, and he was fidgety again. So I grabbed his face and kissed his cheek. He turned completely red, but was grinning ear to ear. In person, he had trouble stringing sentences together, but online we would chat for hours. He had to express his love via email and cuddling without saying a word. We first met over 14 years ago, bought a house together, and got married in October. We went to Disney and Universal for our honeymoon, and to celebrate Halloween. It's pretty much amazing. As we get older, he's gotten much more vocal, but I still do most of the talking and socializing. We do a squeeze when holding hands to mean love you if we don't want to talk. Story 6. I went on a night out in Chester. I was originally not going to go because I'm not a fan of drinking, but my best friend managed to convince me to go out. There were 6 of us. 2 couples, me and another girl. I'm really shy and find it difficult to talk to girls, so for the first few hours I didn't say a word to her. Then we moved to the next bar over. After about an hour in this bar, my best friend's girlfriend ran up the stairs and whispered something into his ear. He comes up to me in his exact words. "Listen, Mike, all you have to do is talk to her. I'm not asking you to do rocket science, just talk to her." So I did. It started off small, like, "How are you? Where do you work?" And it ended with me losing my virginity that night, yet we're still together after 2 months. Story 7. I met my fiancée on the first day of college completely by accident. I programmed my schedule into my phone but hadn't accounted for daylight savings time. Therefore, I showed up to my first class an hour earlier, unknown to me. I had decided that I was going to make a real effort to put myself out there and be social, so I sat near the front of the lecture hall. I'd shown up with plenty of time before class, which was an hour earlier than my real class. I and these 4 people start talking about where we're from and stuff like that. They're all freshmen too, and I'm really stoked because it's before the first class even, and I've found a group of friends to hang out with. One of these people is this gorgeous girl in the row ahead of me, and I fall in love with her the first time she turns around and asks me my name. Right before class, we decided to all get lunch at one of the dining halls later at a specified time. About 15 minutes into the class, it becomes really obvious that I'm not in the last class. I go to my schedule online and realize that my entire schedule on my phone is an hour early. I was too embarrassed to stand up and leave at this point, so I just stayed. I almost didn't go to lunch when and where we agreed because I thought it would be embarrassing, but I thought there was a chance that the gorgeous girl would be there. As luck would have it, I ran into her in the lobby of the dining hall, and we ate lunch and talked for 3 hours. I never saw any of the 3 people from the class, and I don't think I've spoken to them since. I added her on Facebook rather than ask her for a number because I'm a coward. We got lunch together several more times during the first 2 weeks of class. Then she asks me if I'll go with her to this party that her roommate wants to go to. We both hate it. I kissed her after walking her back to her dorm, and we've been together ever since. Daylight savings strikes once again. Story 8. At a garage sale. Well, technically my mom's garage sale. My father was a hoarder, but not of old newspapers or glass bottles or garbage. He hoarded consumer goods. Tools, CDs, home improvement stuff, camping gear, hunting and fishing stuff. The man had piles and piles of it stuffed into his home. Most of it pretty high quality, all bought on clearance. The old man was a sucker for a deal, even if he didn't have a use for it. After he passed away, it fell to us to figure out what to do with a stock of overstocked goods large enough to open a store. So we sold it at rock-bottom prices in the front yard, as is tradition. It was a miserably hot summer day. My mom requested that I come over and help because the house was on a well-trafficked street, and the sheer volume of stuff meant there would be tons of people. She was right. There'd be a zillion people the day before, and though we'd sold a lot of stuff, there was much more yet to go. And today I'd put up an ad up on Craigslist. It was even busier. It was a long day of haggling with strangers, but at the end of the day, we'd sold 90% of the load, and we were just getting ready to close up and celebrate our success with pizza. Then this car pulls up and out hops this gorgeous girl. She starts poking around in the CDs first, finds a couple she loves, then waves me over and starts asking about some she's unfamiliar with. She thought that since she'd found a few things she liked, the stuff she hadn't heard might be in the same vein, not knowing it was purchased indiscriminately from bargain bins all over town. I answer her as best as I can. I hadn't heard most of them, but I was able to steer her to a couple she might enjoy. We kept chatting and I sort of showed her around in between helping other people who kept showing up. There was definitely an instant attraction and some really great conversation. She had to get going, so I made her a sweetheart deal on the stuff and helped her to her car. She got in, drove away, then I realized I hadn't gotten her number. My brother and my neighbor had a fucking field day at my stupidity, but she told me where she worked at a restaurant down the road, and she told me the day she was usually scheduled. So I did something very unusual for me and pursued it. Friday afternoons, I'd drive over from my office and ask to sit in her section. The food was terrible, but she'd stop and chat as long as it wasn't busy. And I caught her admiring a few times, so on my 3rd visit, I told her I'd love to see more of her and asked for her number. 10 years, a marriage, and a child, and we're still head over heels for each other. So I guess I owe my dad for the posthumous hookup. Story 9. So back in college, I was an extreme introvert to the point I was 20 before finally asking someone out. This is that story, and it's a rather long one, admittedly. In my freshman year, I am in an English class and I'm sitting behind this cute Asian girl. The professor is one of those fun types, so on the first day of class we play a game as a class where each would describe a celebrity throughout history. I don't remember who mine was, but I remember her describing Charlie Chaplin and I was the only person who knew the answer. She smiled at me and seemed happy that someone got it right. About a week or two later, the teacher puts people into groups and I end up in a group with her. This was one of those outdoor assignments where the group was sent to go do things across campus. The details are a little fuzzy, but at some point, we all end up at a cafe and we order drinks. I get to talking to this girl and find out she's a biology major and had a boyfriend at the time. I didn't really try pursuing anything with her at the time because she was seeing someone else. But we talked ever so often in class. I didn't expect to see her too much after that class since I was a computer engineer at the time and our majors were wildly different. About a year later, after I tried taking on some of the tougher sciences that engineers have to take and probably got my ass handed to me, I switched over to computer science, which was basically programming and math. I signed up for a first-year computer architecture class that was part of my new curriculum. And on the first day that I was there, everyone was introducing themselves and telling their majors, and this girl is saying she's now a CS major as well. I walk by her and say, "Hey," on the way out, but I can't get myself to say more. The teacher had his office hours the day before the assignment was due each week, and throughout the semester, I tried my best to make use of that. One time, I was waiting for him to show up at his office for office hours when this same girl showed up trying to get help from him on the assignment as well. While we were waiting for him, we got to talking. She was dressed up really nicely compared to usual and jokingly asked me if I wanted a kiss, while offering me a Hershey's kiss. I asked what the occasion was, and she said that she really just enjoyed Valentine's Day and liked sharing that feeling with others. It hadn't even dawned on me up until this point that it was Valentine's Day. I figured I would take advantage of the excellent timing to find out if she was still seeing someone or not. So I asked her if she had any plans for Valentine's Day, and she said no. I didn't dare to ask her on a date, so instead I invited her over to the apartment where my roommates were most likely playing Tekken. She seemed excited by the idea because she grew up playing that game as a kid. She comes over and it ends up being the one day that entire semester when my roommates weren't playing Tekken. We decided to just spend the time talking instead. I find out she's a fairly introverted and shy person herself and didn't want to bother me, but wanted to be my friend back in English class. We made a bunch of jokes at each other and laughed a bunch, then I walked her back to her dorm. The rest of the week was pretty busy till the weekend. We got back together to hang out, and it just so happened that this particular weekend, all of my roommates were going to be staying at a rich friend's house for the whole weekend, leaving just me and her at the dorm. We ended up talking with each other that first night till around 4 a.m. By that point, I was a bit sleep deprived and somehow mustered up the courage to tell her I liked her fully, expecting her to turn me down. Instead, she told me that she liked me back, but was afraid to say anything. We have been dating for over 4 years now. We graduated together and now live together in an apartment with 2 pet bunnies. Story 10. First year of college, we both live on the same floor of our dorm building and see or meet each other for the first time at the floor meeting before the school year starts. There are some icebreaker questions given by the RA that we all have to answer in turn, and one of them is about what we hope to accomplish outside of our academic goals this year. I said that I want to make my own comics and put them online, and she pipes up with a suggestion that I should try a keen spot for hosting. This happened in 2004. In my head, I'm making a mental bookmark. Oh, she knows about the keen spot? She's an internet nerd. We might have stuff in common. Out loud, I'm an idiot, shutting her down with a, well actually, oh, I have my own hosting. I'm not a fan of the keen spot. A few weeks later, she and her roommates invited me and a bunch of other guys on the floor over to their room for a movie night. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live-action films and pizza. Ostensibly, it was so that the people invited could all get to know each other and make friends, and was a success in doing that. I wound up being roommates with most of the other guys invited in successive years at that school, but it was also because the girls were zeroing in on which guys they had their eyes on. So we started crushing on each other fast and hard, and we're both always looking for excuses to hang out with each other, walking together to classes, cooking in the floor-shared kitchen, and eventually the group of us who made friends at the TMNT pizza party all go on a camping trip together, and I'm trying to figure out how and when to appropriately communicate my feelings for her and chickening out repeatedly. After we got back from that camping trip, she corners me in my dorm room and demands to know if I'm into her, and I'm forced to confess that I am, but I asked if she felt the same way about me. Apparently, she'd prepared a series of persuasive arguments and rebuttals to deploy if I said I wasn't, or if I didn't think it would work. I also learned later that she'd selected me at the floor meeting and had been collaborating with the roommates for months to create situations that would put the two of us together. That she shut down 6 other guys that were trying to date her while she was coming after me. I was targeted by a female conspiracy that I had very little say in. Anyway, I proposed 2 years after we started dating, and we were engaged for a year. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary in March, and we're still very much into this thing. Story 11. I moved to the school that she went to. I didn't really fit in anywhere, but she had a friend I thought would make a nice girlfriend. Coincidentally, she had a crush on a guy I sort of hung out with. We conspired to work together. Well, it clearly failed miserably. Her friend had zero interest and turned out to be manipulative, constantly putting down my future girlfriend and making her a quiet, embarrassed slave. As for the guy my future girlfriend was interested in, I held a party at my parents' place and I remember her coming in dressed to the nines to get his attention. She looked amazing to me, but unfortunately didn't get any response. We commiserated and hugged each other for the rest of the night. This led to being study buddies at the library, which led to hanging out at her place, which led to more cuddling. We watched Return of the King 5 times at the cinema that year, but we never saw the ending. Anyway, we've been going out for 14 years and married for 4. I can't imagine life without her. Story 12. We're both introverts, and as a result, it took a little while for us to actually become romantically involved. A little while being 7 years. She and I met when we were both 11, when we were put together to compete in a music competition as a duet. We're both cellists. I had a little 11-year-old crush on her straight away, and she had the same thing for me. Neither of us ever told the other about our feelings for years, instead talking to our friends about it and then getting into other relationships and forgetting about each other for a while. Eventually, after I broke up with my girlfriend of 3 years, I asked her if she wanted to catch up and play some music together. We saw each other for a few weeks in a row, and then, after 7 years of on and off feelings for each other, we became a thing. And I'm happier than I've ever been.